back, guys. We are going to be looking now at oligopoly as another market structure under imperfect competition. An oligopoly is simply a market structure that was initiated or postulated by Paul Sweezy in 1939. And he just brought forth the issue of kinked demand curve. He explains oligopoly in terms of the kinked demand curve, what we call price rigidity in terms of the kinked demand curve. But before we get there, what is an oligopoly? This is simply a market structure which is made up of few large firms that are responsible for the total supply of goods in a market. We have few large firms that produce the same kind of goods that are close substitutes. They are produced in large quantity by few large firms. And we have two types of oligopoly. We have the perfect oligopoly, and then we have the imperfect oligopoly. An example of a perfect oligopoly is, for Cameroonians, it is like we have palm oil in Cameroon and soca palm. Those are two industries that produce the same kind of goods, which are close substitutes, but you cannot easily identify the difference between the two goods. The goods are not differentiated. That is what perfect oligopolies are all about. The goods are not differentiated in terms of maybe trademarks or quality or something. You cannot easily see oil coming from palm oil and you know that this is palm oil, if not for maybe a distinction in terms of the container. You cannot see that of soca palm and tell, you know. So that is a perfect oligopoly. While imperfect oligopolies are those that produce goods that are differentiated from each other. If to say, if the brewery industry in Cameroon were to be an oligopoly, we will say that that is a pure example of an imperfect oligopoly because they produce goods that are differentiated. You can easily identify the difference between the goods. Brasseries is very different from Guinness, different from UCB and the rest in terms of their brands because the goods are distinguished from each other. What is peculiar about firms under oligopoly is that these firms go into cutthroat competition. They do serious competition, but they do not compete by differentiating their commodities by advertising as it is the case under monopolistic competition. They do rigorous competition simply by what we call price war cut. Firm A, for example, will want to reduce the price of its commodity in order to make the commodity appealing to the clients in that economy, hoping to seize the clients of the rival firm and increase his sales revenue in order to maximize profit. But what often happens is that when a particular firm reduces its price in an attempt to gain more market share, the rival firm will not sit idle. The rival firm will also reduce his own price to that same level to avoid losing his clients to the firm that started reducing its price. And also, if firm A, for example, raises its own price above a particular point, firm B will not raise theirs because they know that if they maintain their prices while the alternative firm has increased their own price, then the good that is sold by the alternative firm will be judged to be more expensive, and then those clients will rush to them. Remember, I said that firms under oligopoly produce goods that are close substitutes, even though they may be differentiated. Basically, they perform the same function. So if you are firm A, I am firm B. If you raise the price of your commodity, hoping to have more sales revenue and maximize profit, I am not going to do anything. I will simply maintain my price below yours so that your good will look more expensive than mine, then your clients will rush to me. So you realize that if you reduce your price, others will follow. You raise your price, people will not raise theirs, and you will lose customers. So it is not necessary, for firms under oligopoly to alter their prices. It is not profitable for them to raise or reduce their prices. So they are forced to maintain the price at a particular point. That is what we call price rigidity. What Paul Sweezy explains in terms of the kinked demand curve. So we are going to see the kinked demand curve and justify why it is not necessary or profitable for firms to reduce or raise their prices once they are at the point of kink. This is how we illustrate it. We have our cost and revenue, and then we have our output. Then the first thing is we draw our average revenue curve, which is the same as the demand curve. Remember, the average revenue curve of every firm is that firm's demand curve. But there is going to be a little twist here, because the average revenue curve of a firm under oligopoly has two elasticities in one. That is, at the top it is fairly elastic in demand, and at the bottom it is fairly inelastic in demand. So this is what you do. You have the upper portion having the curve being elastic, and then it switches to an inelastic demand curve. Average revenue, which is the same as the demand curve of every firm. And then the next thing you do is you draw the marginal cost curve. We have the marginal cost. I'm going to bring in two marginal cost curve. I will tell you why. Marginal cost curve 1, marginal cost curve 2. Now, these two marginal cost curves are there to explain that even if the firm's cost of producing an extra output were to change, we know that the cost of an extra output is marginal cost. That is to say, even if marginal cost were to rise, the firm will not change its output, and it will not also alter its price. And we know that the profit maximizing output of every firm is that output where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So what do? We are going to bring in our marginal revenue curve. And at all of these marginal cost curves, marginal revenue is going to be equal to them for us to be able to determine our output and the price at which this good will be sold. So this is our marginal revenue curve. We have marginal revenue being equal to marginal cost here. MR being equal to MC, where the price and output of every firm is determined. And then we do not continue on that straight line like that. You know, you just step down. You step down straight below it to show that also at this point where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost curve 1, that is the profit maximizing output level. So your marginal revenue slopes further like that. So you have to determine your output now. What output is this firm producing? It is producing at that output where MR is equal to MC. And we have two of those situations here. This is our output where the firm is producing. What price is this firm going to charge? It is going to charge that price at the point where the dotted line coming from MR and MC touches the average revenue curve. So we take this dotted line straight up. It touches the average revenue curve at the point of kink, and then we read it from the margin where we have cost and revenue. This is the price of the firm. So that is how you draw the diagram for a kinked demand curve under oligopoly. This is the point of kink, and then we have elastic demand, and then we have fairly inelastic demand here. Now, why is it that this firm will be reluctant to increase its price above P? Why do firms under oligopoly not want to raise their prices? Why may a firm under oligopoly not desire to raise its price above the point of kink? First, if a firm raises its price above P, its product will be seen to be more expensive, since those who are producing the same commodity, that is his rivals, will not raise theirs, so he will lose clients. That is the first reason why they will not raise prices above P. The second reason, firms will be unwilling to raise their prices above P, because if they do so, you realize that from the kinked demand curve, that is from point P, the demand curve here is elastic. Above the kinked point, or the point of kink, the demand curve is elastic. And when a good is elastic in demand, you dare not raise its price, because a little increase in its price will lead to a more than proportionate fall in quantity demanded. In order to raise revenue for a good that is elastic in demand, what do? You instead reduce its price in order to gain more than proportionate sales. So no firm will desire to raise its price, because if you do, you will be faced with an elastic demand curve. When a good is elastic in demand and you raise the price by a small proportion, you realize that quantity demanded will fall by a larger proportion. Revenue loss will be far greater than revenue gained. So it will not be advisable for this firm to raise its price above this point. Secondly, why would this firm not desire to reduce its price below point P? As we said, if you reduce your price below point P, hoping to seize the clients or hoping to gain a larger market share, because you feel that your good will be the cheapest in the market, remember that rival firms who are producing the substitute to your own commodity will also reduce their prices to that same level. So both of you will lose. Nobody gains an extra share of the market, yet you will both be selling at a lesser price. Secondly, firms will not desire to reduce their prices below P, because if they do so, they will now be faced with an inelastic demand curve. You see, this portion of the demand curve becomes inelastic. And when you are selling a commodity that is inelastic in demand, it is very, very unreasonable of you to reduce your price, because a large drop in price leads to a less than proportionate increase in quantity demanded. When you are producing an inelastic good and you want to increase sales revenue, you rather raise the price than reduce it. If you raise the price, if you reduce the price of a good that is fairly inelastic, this is what will happen. Let's say you're selling at 50 francs, and then you're selling 10 units. You decide to reduce your price drastically to 10 francs, hoping to increase demand. But demand increases just by 2 units to 12. You realize that your revenue that you have lost will be far greater than the revenue you will gain, because previously when you were selling at 50 francs, your total revenue was 50 times 10, 500 francs. Now that you have dropped your price hoping to increase sales, sales have actually increased by a lesser proportion. You now have 10 times 12, and 10 times 12 gives you 120. So you realize that you have experienced a very big loss in total revenue of 380 francs. So reducing prices is not profitable. Raising prices is also not profitable. Firms under oligopoly are bound to maintain prices at the point of kink. That is what we call collusive action. They collude. They have a tacit agreement, and they decide that they will look for alternative means of competing with each other, since varying their prices has not been profitable or beneficial to any of them. So what do? They do publicity, they go into serious advertisement, they do sales promotion, they offer after-sales services in order to increase individual sales, yet maintain prices at the point of kink. So that is what an oligopoly firm is all about, and its diagrammatic illustration. And then this you see, this portion where the marginal revenue curve coming down from the cost and revenue axis has a break in order to, before continuing, we call this the indeterminary region. This portion, let me call it portion AB. This is the indeterminary region. And the indeterminary region is just there to explain that what? No matter the change in your cost of production as an individual oligopoly in that industry, it will not make sense, or it will not help you if you reduce or increase the price. Even if your cost of production, that is marginal cost, were to rise or to fall, maintain output at point Q and then charge price P. Because if you increase your price, the consequences that I just explained will apply. If you reduce your price, hoping to get more sales, other firms will follow suit. And when they follow suit, you will all lose. You reduce your price, you will also be faced with an inelastic demand curve. And then you will gain little and lose more in terms of revenue. So that is what oligopoly is all about. Thank you guys for listening. If there are any questions, you drop them in the comment section, and then I'm going to come with more lessons and more tutorials on this topic. Stay blessed. God bless you.